All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday, 1:50 p.m. That's California time here where I'm located. March 30th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 3.5 across somewhere out here in the red flag. I noticed a 3.2 down here around the Costa Rica area. 3.5 looks like it's over here across the Indonesia Islands region. They're hiding behind that 4-pointer. So, a lot of activity stirring up here in the last couple days with a swarm of large earthquakes happening all over the planet. Now, that appears to have been kicked off following a couple sixes out here in the mid-Atlantic ridge. Seems like since we've seen that activity prior to all this larger movement there, it definitely set off a domino effect of larger earthquakes across the planet, including this earthquake that struck here this morning. Woke me up. My earthquake app went off at about, about, when was it? 5:18 a.m. I don't want to get up that early, especially on a Sunday, right? So that woke me up, but I have it set on my earthquake alert system there to send off a siren if there's anything above 6.5, and sure enough, that one came in and woke me up. Went ahead and jumped up, did an update real quick, then laid back down for another hour or two because it was kind of tired getting up that early on a Sunday. 7.0. This originally coming in as a 7.3 earthquake. Now that's it's a pretty strong earthquake, and I was expecting this to get upgraded. And the reason why I say that, because of the large seismic signature, the P wave that was picked up here all across these seismograph stations there that are around the planet. But they surprisingly downgraded it to a 7.0, 18 miles deep here into the Tonga area. Did trigger a tsunami statement. I don't think there was any tsunami observed. Let me check here from the Tsunami Warning Center. And by the way, that tsunami was just strictly for the Tonga area. So even these folks downgraded it there from a 7.3. This was the last message here. The tsunami threat had passed. Let's see. There was a couple tsunami observations there. Very shallow. I mean, very small in terms of maximum tsunami height. Look at that, 0.01 meter. So those are extremely small numbers, hardly even noticeable if you're out there along the coastline. So that's good, but this area can definitely see some larger activity for sure, something well above a 7. And there's just the latest earthquake here in the terms of larger magnitudes in the last few days. It's been quite active since all that activity there across the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Swarming activity in terms of larger magnitudes there. Aftershock activity is occurring. 6.2, 5.8, the largest in the sequence of aftershocks. Within about a 24-hour window, there's always a possibility that we could see a large earthquake up to, maybe even potentially over, so far, the main quake of a 7.0. This area can see earthquakes in the 8 magnitude, maybe a little bit higher than that. So got to watch that. We'll keep an eye on that here for the next 24 hours. Either way, aftershocks there continuing. If we look at the last 7 days of activity, let's go 30 days significant, right? Now I say significant because these are the bigger quakes. And looking at the largest magnitude here, in the last 30 days, significant worldwide, 7.7 goes there to the Burma area, Myanmar region, where that earthquake struck, just a couple days ago. That was the big one. That's so far the largest earthquake this year for 7.7. Unfortunately, that was a very shallow earthquake and around a very populated area where damage and fatalities and whatnot took place. That's unfortunate, but anywhere around these plate boundaries, earthquakes are capable. Southern California is easily capable of seeing that magnitude, if not higher. Geologists and scientists and whatnot have been saying for years that the Southern California area along the San Andreas Fault here is capable of producing an 8.1. So an 8.1 is much stronger than a 7.7, and you've seen what that 7.7 can do. Pretty crazy. So a lot of activity. I know it seems like, numbers that are popping up like crazy now in terms of the numbers out here as far as the earthquake activity. But let me go back here. I don't know what I did with my map here. I wanted to check and show you guys real quick what we have for a total tally of earthquakes this year. And then we'll take a look on average what we're supposed to see out here on any given year in terms of the number of earthquakes. All right, so stand by for a second. I had this set up already. Looks like I may have changed it here when I started the update. So this is, wait a minute, what did I do here? I went 2000, there's our last 8-pointer. I went back the last 4 years. I meant to go back to 2025. There we go. Which is only 3 months and 30 days. All right, let's try that again. So here we are. We got 4 7-pointers now. That's a decent amount, right? But if you think about it, we're almost already in the month of April, right? And the number of earthquakes out here, this is on average. This is put out 2015. Really nothing has changed. We're not seeing a noticeable increase in magnitudes here. It's just common. This is what we see on any given year. So we should see at least 15 earthquakes of magnitude 7.0 to 7.9 each year. And we are at 4. And here we are almost in the 4th month of the year, April. So if we follow this trend, well, you know, a lot of these earthquakes struck up this month, but we're below average right now. Say if we get another 7-pointer for the rest of the year, that's still going to put us below average, and the average is about 15. Now M8.0, we have not had one of those yet. The last one was back in 2021, so that's a little concerning there. The longer likelihood the likelihood of seeing a larger than an 8-pointer goes up when we don't have an 8-pointer out here on any given year. I'm talking about something in the 9.0 range, subduction zone earthquakes. So 2021, here we are 2025, and we have not had an 8-pointer yet. A little concerning. 130 earthquakes of magnitude 6.0 to 6.9 each year. So obviously we're not... what do we got there? I'm not going to count them all, but I think we're a little even behind on that in terms of the average number of 6-pointers that we see each year. It's just that these most recent events have hit very populated areas, right? That one there, 7.7 Burma area. That, they did some damage. 6.7 aftershock there following that main quake. So we're just kind of watching things. Also, I got my eyes on this area out here, and you guys have heard me talk about it quite a bit. It's the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of northern California and southern Oregon. I was just talking about how we've had a bunch of earthquake activity here last year in the Gorda Ridges. All of a sudden, that kicked up this morning and last night. With a number of earthquakes out here. This is a spreading seafloor center. You see these ridges building up. That's due to the separation of the plates right here. When these plates separate, the ridges build because of the strain against the subduction zone, the Cascadia. It does take a lot of force here to subduct underneath this land. That is the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that's a little concerning there because we're seeing some interesting movement out here in the last 7 days. One earthquake right on the Cascadia subduction zone. Another one, a little surface quake there as well, further up north. But it's these quakes here that I'm worried about because that's further adding to the strain out here against the southern end of the Cascadia. And I think we have a higher likelihood of seeing a partial rupture instead of a full, complete unzip of the Cascadia subduction zone, which would result in a 9.0 or greater earthquake. These partial ruptures occur sometimes in between the main events, which occur between 250 and 500 years. So we haven't had any rupture at all in 325 years. So keep an eye on this. It's very interesting there to see the ridges having some activity. That's obviously adding strain out here across the southern end. Strike slip boundary, that's a 3.4 earthquake late last night. Now, that one was prior, right? 1054. Yeah, but it looks like following this 3-pointer, we've seen some further activity down here. So this region is quite active here, and obviously adding strain out here across the southern end. We've got another earthquake coming in right now as I'm speaking about it. Goodness. 1.8 just about 10 minutes ago. That's at the southern end of the Cascadia at a surface level, though, well, about 5.8 miles deep underneath this area. But I'm interested to see what tremor looks like here later on today. Tremor is the slow slip events that occur in a subduction zone as the two plates slide past each other. Obviously, when we see tremor underneath this area, we're looking at added strain here across the southern end. And in the last year or so, I've noticed an increasing focus here of larger earthquake activity, elevated tremor, elevated movement out here in the divergent zones of the oceanic crust here, right? The separation of the two plates as the swelling underneath this area increases. Just a real quick layout I'll show you guys here. This is the Cascadia subduction zone, a cutout view of the Pacific Northwest, which the Cascadia obviously extends from Northern California all the way up past the Vancouver Island ranges here. So you got Juan de Fuca plate here as a whole that's subducting underneath the North American plate in the red line. Subduction zone earthquakes occur just offshore where the interface of the North American and the Juan de Fuca plate begin. 1700, the last big earthquake. Now, sometimes, on occasion, we get these deeper earthquakes that happen below the tremor zone. Now, the tremor zone occurs just above this level, right? So the further up you go on this map, the shallower it gets, the deeper it gets down here. Obviously, you get into the mantle, you get the volcanoes, the Cascade area. That's where the plate decides to recycle itself and come back up through the volcanoes there. But occasionally we get these deeper earthquakes. Our last one was back in 2001 underneath the Seattle area. That I think it was a 6.5 or 6.7 or so, but it was fairly deep, fortunately, for those folks up there. But they have their own Seattle fault they have to worry about. So the tremor activity occurring upstream here, up above the hand here, about 45 kilometers deep. These occurring much deeper. And that's something we haven't had, is a deeper earthquake in a little while. 1949, 1965, 2001, here we are 2025. Yeah, it's possible we could be seeing maybe some deeper activity. If not that, well, then we have to start maybe looking at a rupture out here, partial rupture of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that would result in up to, could easily be an 8.4. And that in itself would be quite damaging and produce a tsunami out here. Nothing of the likes of a 9.0. Obviously, that's going to be much stronger and more of a damaging scenario. But these events today, and the tremor activity out here leads me to believe that we need to watch this area quite closely. So I'm putting my 2 cents out there on that, and I've been chatting about it for a little bit, and it looks like it's kicked up overnight out there as well. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet. A couple smaller microquakes out there. Northern California, as I noted, 1.8. They're south of Eureka, associated with the Cascadia. Even though it's inland here, it's got to do with the strain that's currently out there across the plate boundary. The Bay Area, pretty quiet. One earthquake on the San Andreas Fault outside the San Francisco Zoo, 1.1. That's from yesterday. Not a whole lot of newer activity today. And same for Southern California, just a handful of earthquakes. I was watching this last night or yesterday afternoon, 2.7. I was thinking this is going to kick off a swarm because that's normally where we see earthquake swarms down here, but it hasn't. Only just produced a little 2.7. But that is at the extreme southern end of the San Andreas Fault here. But aside from that, Southern California just looking like any given day out there. Yellowstone National Park. I got to show you guys this real quick. I'll go over here and show you. We actually have some activity stirring up out there right now. The 7-pointer that struck this morning in Tonga, very visible, right? Parker Peak picking it up. Lake Butte, Promontory, Borehole. That's just these 7-pointers. There's a P wave, the primary wave, and then that's followed up here by some lengthy surface waves there, and they sometimes can travel the Earth a couple times around the globe. So that showed up quite nicely, but it looks like prior to that, we've had a little earthquake swarming up here at Yellowstone National Park. These are all earthquakes, and I say that because they showed up here on Purple Mountain, Madison River, a little bit there on the west boundary. That's not wind events at all. There's Mary Lake as well, picking up some of the larger events. That is a bunch of earthquakes here in a very short time period. There's I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 60 earthquakes or so in this seismograph station here. Nothing, by the way, being reported there across Yellowstone. It is the weekend here, so these guys talking about the USGS, are not going to get to the earthquakes until Monday morning after the coffee and the meeting and, the morning meetings and whatnot. Hopefully, they go and look at all these earthquakes here, because that's a decent amount of earthquake activity. Now, all these are probably, let's see here, under 2.0. Maybe this one right here, borehole, probably. This one actually looks like it's an independent quake there, that borehole quake. But there's a lot of little ones, folks, and it looks like the epicenter actually may be around the Madison River area. If I look at that, there's even little smaller ones in between the little bigger one, in between the little bigger ones. No, in between the bigger ones. So that looks like, could increase the number there up to about 70 earthquakes or so, maybe even more, if they go and count every single one of these. But 99% of the time, they will not count these little bitty individual ones in between the bigger ones. So, but I'm seeing them. There's earthquake activity there. More than likely, they'll probably come up with about 50 earthquakes for some of the larger events. But again, those are all under 2.0. But hopefully they get to them. That's a decent earthquake swarm there. And it looks like we've had a couple more here in the last couple hours. Do you have Yellowstone up here? I don't. Where'd it go? Normally I keep Yellowstone up here. Maybe I forgot to add that with all the earthquake activity here recently. I'll re-add that. I can add quite a few stations out here, as you can see, across the seismic network there. So we'll get on that. But there's a little bit of earthquake activity, I would say, happening there at Yellowstone. Nothing big. In fact, I was just talking about how we haven't had an earthquake swarm, and I'm speaking these things into existence. What's going on here? Maybe I should go play the lottery. Actually, I did play the lottery a couple days ago. Just haven't checked my ticket. Yellowstone, or Texas out here. Oil fields still getting hit. Nothing new to report out there across the eastern portion of the country. As far as any newer activity across the Atlantic, one earthquake there, 4.4, way up in the Verdekinus Ridge area. Iceland still waiting in terms of that eruption up there. But, right, well, the earthquake count went down for some reason. I didn't even change that. It's got a tendency to automatically adjust itself here. So right now, of course, got that 7.7. Still seeing some aftershock activity there. No unusual notice here across that region, but we are seeing an uptick here across Japan. The Japan Trench up here showing quite a bit of activity. And that's worrisome because we have the Nankai Trough, which sits down here. Now, the earthquake activity is not directly occurring on that, but it is applying, I'm sure, quite a bit of strain in this general area with all this movement around the region here. This activity in the 4 range from yesterday and today around the Japan Trench. But keep an eye here. I'm not really concerned about the Japan Trench because we had that 9.1 back in 2011. But the Nankai Trough here, that's the subduction zone right here. It's been under quite a bit of strain recently, and it's been a little while since we've seen any big earthquake activity on it. So watch that region there. Just got a lot going on. Eventually, we're going to fill in some of these areas with 8-pointers. That's just, I don't want to see it, but that's just the facts here. It's going to happen. I would say we're overdue here for an 8-pointer somewhere out here on the globe. It could happen in New Zealand. It could happen in Japan. It could be Southern California. It could be Seattle. You just never know. There's another earthquake coming in as I speak on my phone. That one's a 3.2 up in Alaska. Just came in right there. So Alaska really not having too much earthquake activity. There was a 4.3, looks like yesterday, way up north here. Cantwell, Alaska, from yesterday. So keep an eye on things here. Let's see, what is this earthquake? That is today, a 4.2, fairly deep. A lot of times similar to the Peru-Chile Trench. We'll watch this area, see large earthquake activity, and it will also trigger or almost cause a domino effect here across the subduction zone. Got to watch that. That's some deeper activity following that larger activity up north there into the Tonga region that we had this morning. Watch that, because sometimes we'll see like a little unzipping. We'll see larger earthquake activity occurring down along the entire length of the subduction zone. We've seen it there across the Peru-Chile Trench last year, the year before. All right, space weather activity. We're sizzling a little bit. look at the flare chart. We're crackling with some flares. This is looking a lot more active than what we've had here in the last couple weeks. Numerous M flares, all these flares right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we got the X flare here a couple days ago. So things are starting to sizzle on the sun, so to speak. And that's due to a very active area. I'm sure you guys can spot it here on the UV filter of the sun right here. This is the area that produced the X flare a couple days ago. That still fairly massive in size, but this one is just sizzling consistently with C and M flare activity. A number of M flares here. Nothing above M2.5 it looks like, because Kevin here on the Solar Ham site has not added it, but let's take a look here. 4048 is the culprit, and the potential maybe for some larger flaring activity. Further, that is quite a complex sunspot there with individual cores there of many different colors. That's probably a beta gamma delta structure. 4048 right here is beta gamma. There in the blue, in the red, I should say. It looks like it is growing. And I say that because a couple videos back, when it was back on the far side of the sun, we observed it on this map right here. And, well, now it's in visible view. But for the longest time we were looking at this, it was quiet. And then all of a sudden, when it was getting close to the eastern limb, it blew up, started getting bigger to where we're at right now. It's producing numerous M flares and C flares and currently sizzling. Flare threat is going up. I'm issuing a 20% chance for an X flare from that sunspot. Also, M flare is going up as well, about 55% chance. Kevin hasn't changed his yet. I'm sure he will. But watch that sunspot, 4048. It is a fairly massive area. This one up here, 4046. Let's take a look at the magnetogram image here of that. Not really, not looking all that fancy right now as this one is. Look at that. Look at the color differences. This one has potential for some X flare activity, big time. And if it waits a couple more days here, it will be directly in the Earth-facing view, which could stir up some auroras, pending it blasts off a nice, significant CME. Nothing in the forecast, so for now, we'll watch that sunspot. 4048. A decent chance for some X flare. Storm Prediction Center here. Man, look at this huge area. Wow. I haven't seen anything like this in quite a while. We're talking about 41 million people in the line of enhanced severe weather today. That includes threats for tornado activity. If you're out here anywhere today, just be on guard. The main area of focus that the Storm Prediction Center feels, where all the dynamics are within this hatched area. 10% hatched area. That's a 10% greater probability of seeing an EF2 to an EF5, which is the strongest tornado on records there, like far as the scale goes, within about 25 miles of a point. So that's fairly significant today. Also some wind, big-time wind threats, and some hail out there. So just keep your eye on the sky, keep your weather radio handy. Tomorrow, all that severe weather shifts to the east, taking that severe weather threat, and tornado threat with it. So goodness, just be on guard out there today, folks. A lot of severe weather kicking up. As far as the forecast models go, long-range models showing, looks like continued, look at that, almost like a fire hose of severe weather here as we head into the month of April, aimed across Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas area. Wow. California, we're drying out a little bit. We got a little bit of rain last night. Wow, it looks like a decent storm system there towards the middle of April, just spinning off the coast there along the west coast. That's an interesting pattern. I'll take it. I'm not going to complain. April can bring easily 90-degree temperatures out here in Northern California. No, thank you, because I know what happens after the 90s. It's even worse. As we get into May, June, and July, it's brutal. A lot of people don't believe me, but it's easily above 110 for numerous days out here across Northern California in the summertime. Pretty much a mini Death Valley. Not joking. I'll start sharing some more of my weather posts when we hit those temperatures, because people think I'm lying, but I'm not. I've lived out here the majority of my life, unfortunately. I'm done with the heat. I don't like it. Seismograph station's pretty quiet. I'll remember to add a Yellowstone station up here after this update. Just be on guard out there, folks. Keep an eye there on the Cascadia. We'll cover the tremor map here. It comes in about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm curious to see if the tremor has been amplified out here underneath this region with this ridge activity along the Gorda ridges recently. Remember that? This whole activity right there is adding further strain on the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening.